family. He must always seek to discern the spiritual good for his wife and children, just as Christ laid down his life for the spiritual good of his bride, the church, all of us, our salvation. Like a heroic soldier, the husband who is a soldier of Christ through confirmation must be always ready and willing to sacrifice his own personal preferences that aren't for the overall good of his family. In the classic movie It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey sacrificed his own dislike for his hometown, Bedford Falls, even the house they lived in, yet did so and stayed because, no doubt in large part, the happiness it brought to his wife Mary. The fact that many husbands have failed in their exercise of the headship doesn't mean that we can simply throw away the divine teaching. And sadly, in recent decades, as it has been largely ignored, the reality of family life and marital relationships among Catholics in the divorce rate is just as bad as it is among non-Catholics. Whereas the husband and father is the head of the family, the Church recognizes and sees the wife and mother as the heart of the family. And just as the head is essential for the survival of the body, so too is the heart. And for me, one of the most memorable scenes and telling scenes in the movie It's a Wonderful Life is when George Bailey expresses his desire to marry for adventure, fame, and fortune, and it basically explained why he didn't want to marry. And he says words that really sum up our modern age. I want to do what I want to do. His life was a constant struggle between his ambitious and selfish desires for selfless sacrifice to others. In critical moments, he made the selfless choice, but really, in large part, resented it. Thanks to the prayers of his family and friends, especially his wife, God helps George to see with new eyes how blessed he is to have such a loving wife, children, and so many friends that love and care for him, and how his selfless acts have led others to lead more joyful and wonderful lives. Rather than a feminist remake of the classic movie with Mary and George switching roles, it would actually be more enlightening to see what life would have been like if Mary had not been born. Would Bedford Falls have also become like Pottersville, as it did in that scene at the end? And what would have become of George if he fulfilled his desire to leave his hometown and followed his worldly and selfish dreams? Now, it's important also to recall the last part of St. Paul's words today in the second reading was, wives, be subordinate to your husbands as is proper in the Lord. And so husbands and fathers' authority is only legitimate when it is in accord with God's commandments and teaching the church. Indeed, the wife must always obey God rather than any sinful request on the part of a husband, whether it be something like sterilization, contraception, or any intimacy which is not open to procreation. As we prayed in the responsorial psalm, blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. Husbands, of course, not only have Christ as their model, but also St. Joseph. Could you ever imagine St. Joseph exercising his headship in the Holy Family over Mary in a selfish way? Pray to him then for the grace to exercise this authority always for the spiritual good of your family and the spirit of St. Paul's words today, with kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Also ask St. Joseph for the grace to be faithful to your calling as the spiritual head of your family, which includes cultivating a personal prayer life. And that's something that George Bailey reveals in the movie that he did not do, and that likely is one of the reasons that led him to nearly wanting to take his life and not recognizing what a wonderful life he really had. As the spiritual head of the family, the husband or dad also has the duty to ensure that the family comes to Mass on Sunday, that the children are able to receive the sacrament of penance frequently, certainly monthly, and lead the wife and children daily in prayer, especially the Holy Rosary. And so in this Feast of the Holy Family, may our children learn to turn to the Christ child as their special model to honor and love and obey their parents. May St. Joseph especially assist our husbands and fathers in their role as loving, self-sacrificial heads of their families. And may our Blessed Mother, the most perfect woman ever created, help wives and mothers to be the loving hearts of their families by humbly sacrificing their wills to their husband's decisions so long as they're in accord with the teaching of Christ and his church. When the husbands become the true sacrificial heads of their families and the wife, sacrificial heart, the entire family will experience that wonderful peace that St. Paul speaks of today, and that joy, and even a taste of the joy of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.